You're listening to Cannonball Mindset, a podcast dedicated to helping people achieve the most out of their personal and professional lives. The Cannonball Mindset challenges you to step out of your comfort zone and lean into the possibility of having a life of abundance. Disruptors, innovators, and groundbreakers are all welcome. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the Cannonball Mindset. I am Chad Sanskrin, your host, and today we're going to hang with not only an Olympian, an entrepreneur, a badass podcast host, probably one of the greatest podcast hosts you could ever listen to, a sauna enthusiast, a cold plunge doer, a marathon finisher. I'm saying the list just goes on and on. You're like, well, how do you top Olympic medals? She has found a way. Plus, she's one of my great friends, somebody I absolutely respect and admire in a million ways. The one and only Katie Hoff.
So fun. So pumped to be here.
Oh my gosh. We've known each other for several years now.
Yeah.
And we finally got around to doing this, which is awesome. Right before the Olympics start. You just crushed like, it felt like it was 100 days. Prelims.
Yes, it definitely felt like 100 days at Olympic trials, but it was only 10.
But it was 10. I'm telling you, I was like obsessed. I'm like finishing calls and I'm like, oh, where's she doing now? What's she doing? It should have been like, that's what it should be. Where the hell is Katie Hoff today? Where the hell is Katie Hoff today?
Someone told me that actually, just like in general travels, which is the same for you. It's like, where in the world are you right now?
The difference is I usually don't get to rub elbows with people like you, where you, every day, it's like, well, who's she with today? And who's she with today? And like, you never know.
Yeah.
How's that feel? I'm saying, how's it feel to be so busy, so respected, that people want to be around you, they want to be around your energy, and not even just because you're an Olympian, just because of who you are?
I mean, I think that's the best part, and you have said that to me, and it's probably the greatest compliment of just being able to overcome, yes, I was an Olympian, but accomplishing things beyond that has been, in this past 2 years, has been something that I feel like I'm the most proud of.
Yeah, I'm definitely want to unpack that and dig into it. But I'm going to start back though before that, because I want to talk about the Olympics a little bit. And I think most people know you for being just this ridiculously amazing, gifted swimmer.
Yeah.
But that's like a pebble in the landscape that is Katie Hoff. So let's talk about first, at what point did you know that swimming was something that you were going to excel at, that you knew like there's something different here than what other people might have or do?
I would say 9, which is funny because I previously was like, it was 9, like that was late, and people have been like, that's really young.
Like
9 years old. I mean, I started when I was 5, and then I kind of didn't have like the competitive bug right out of the gate. I was just like, okay, like I love purple, so if I could get purple, that'd be great, which is like 7th. Yeah. So I didn't have that killer mentality right out of the gate, and then I feel like when I was 9, I broke my first state record. I kind of figured out how to work hard, which I truly think it's a skill set. It's like another thing to learn how to do, and that clicked for me. And at that point, I became a psycho, like an absolute psycho, just working hard, going to practice, doing every possible thing, and I did not look back from there.
Was this at 9 and those years following that, you're really guided by your parents as far as taking you to practice and signing you up for things. At least I'm thinking, like, I have kids, and when they were 9, I had to wake them up to go to practice. I had to get them in the pool, and they loved swimming. They were really good at it. But this is like, at what point did you convince your parents?
9.
9. Like,
9.
Parents, this is what I'm doing.
It wasn't
the other way around.
No, I was guiding it, and like my parents are, I would say, I mean, to their credit, very laid back, and my brother is a bit more laid back than I am, and so it was very much driven by, do you want to go? If you don't want to go, you don't have to go. And I was like, no, I want to. By 13, I was like, I want to do 2 days. Like, I want to do it. Just, I feel like if I had parents who were more crazy, it would have been a disaster, because I needed people to just be like, it's fine, it's cool, because my personality is just so intense when I find something that I'm in love with.
Yeah, and you swam in Baltimore, in Maryland.
Yep.
At one of the predominant, like the place in the country that produces great swimmers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, North Baltimore Aquatic Club, you walk into Meadowbrook, which is the name of the pool, and it's lined with pictures of Olympians. Yeah. And I always say, like, it's something so subtle, but I think the culture of the team is just very much like you grow up thinking that just making the Olympics is status quo, you know, which is like, there's two sides of that, right? Yeah, like, you're like, you don't appreciate it as much, but at the same time, the fact that that's the standard, I truly believe that's why they over and over and over have put people on the Olympic team.
At some point, because you're on a swim team with Michael Phelps, you're on a swim team with like all these just amazing swimmers. Missy Franklin, you know your friends and podcasts with Missy Franklin. You start surrounding yourself through this journey with just amazing people. Has that, like, at what point did it dawn on you this concept of my circle changes and I get better as my circle? Like, I'm not competing with my circle, but I'm hanging in these more powerful circles, and I gotta produce. I don't want to be ousted from this circle. I want to compete at that level.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I feel like it's something I realize more now looking back, and when I've been in situations, you know, after swimming where that wasn't the case, where excellence wasn't the status quo. But I've been very fortunate where it was like NBAC, and then it was United States Olympic Committee Training Center, and so there was never actually really a time where I felt like there weren't people striving for excellence, and that just became my normal. Yeah. And I think I also was a big contributor to that. But I also kind of had blinders on too, like my earlier 9, 10, like people were making fun of me. People were thinking I was a weirdo for, you know, trying to do above and beyond. And I just kind of didn't care. Like, and I don't really know why, but I just kind of didn't care. And I look back and I'm like, people were mean.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, the reason I asked that question earlier is because if you look at your circle now, like I don't even know how I got into your circle, to be honest with you. Somebody's like, Chad, how did you penetrate?
Ironclad.
Next thing I know, I'm at your house for Todd's birthday party, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, there's an Olympian, wait, there's a CrossFit champion, and I'm like, and I remember, and I'm the old guy, remember, I'm old.
You hung pretty good, though. You hung pretty good.
Powerful circles, and people wanting to be around you to be in your circle. And it's kind of even now, like your success now is you keep elevating these circles that you're in, and it's because you attract what you put off. And one of the reasons I'm so attracted to you, so like drawn to your energy, is because you have this I'm gonna win at all cost mentality. You're very, I don't think you're. What's interesting is I had this conversation. I wanted to ask you about it to kind of side rail real quick. Is I used to say that I was disciplined, and I'm not disciplined. I'm devoted. And what I realized about you, you're not disciplined. You're devoted to what you want.
Yeah.
And so, seeing now that you're so devoted to elevating yourself in all things you do, what you've done with your podcast is.
Thank you.
It doesn't even make sense. Like it defies logic. Because everybody says, you got to do 30 podcasts for 2 years to get some traction. And you went from, you ever been to an amusement park?
But I hate roller coasters, disclaimer.
Well, I'll explain the roller coaster to you. There's two types of roller coasters. There's the old style roller coasters where it's like a really slow uphill, like you're really getting to the top of the hill, and then you pause, and then there's these new ones that just like shoot you out.
Yeah.
That's what your podcast has been. It's like it's unbelievable. But this is just your track record. At what point did you realize, if I keep elevating my game, my circles keep getting more powerful, and as I get more powerful, my circles get more powerful, and things just happen for you? Because it seems to be that's your playbook.
I mean, it's interesting hearing you say that, because yes, right now, like all the people that are around us are like-minded and everyone's going for big things. But I also had a period of time where there was like 5 or 6 years where that wasn't the case, So it's like, I have to reflect on like, how does that happen? And I think the thing that always drives me back to excellence, back to doing something extraordinary is just, I have to find the thing, right? And so when I don't have the thing, which was those 5 or 6 years after swimming, I wasn't being my best self. I wasn't being excellent. And so I've thought a lot about that, like, okay, how have I reconstructed myself post swimming? And it was like finding the podcast, because as soon as I find the thing, it's like, watch out, I'm obsessed, like nothing's gonna stop me, I'll do anything. But that's always the challenge, is like, how do you then find that thing again and again and again? And we've talked about this, but it's kind of a comforting feeling of like, once I find it, things will just kind of unfold. Not that it's easy, but things will unfold.
I'm so glad that you kind of introduced those 5 years, like you talked about those 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't think people read the book for the final chapter. I think they actually read it for the stuff in the middle, and that's what I want. Because that's, without context of looking at you, people could say, well, come on, this woman's got a gifted life. I'm saying she's 9 years old. She knew she wanted to be an Olympian.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's hard work, but now she surrounds herself with Olympians, and she hangs with all these badass people. But I want to talk about that.
That's the highlight reel.
Yeah, that's the highlight reel, right? Nobody sees the struggle. You and I have talked off camera about that. So you know you want to go to the Olympics. You have this work ethic. You're devoted. You do the things that nobody else. But then you realize that you are different. You are different. You get to the Olympics. Let's talk about the Olympics, and then let's talk about post-Olympics. So pre-Olympics, you dialed in. Tell us the struggles or your biggest adversity you had in. Okay, now I'm in. Now reality sets in.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to break it down to each Olympics. So my first Olympics was 2004. I'm 2 months after my 15th birthday, and like a very, I would say, naive, sheltered 15-year-old. I mean, you're already naive at 15, but I was homeschooled. And so I went into 2004 thinking, if I could just make the final at Olympic trials, that'll give me great experience heading into 2008. Like, there's no way in the world that I'm going to win Olympic trials. And that's exactly what I did. I won Olympic trials in 2 events and swam out of my mind, and just kind of, I feel like my life is just like, I always kind of like raise the bar like a little higher than I'm kind of ready for. And then I kind of have to fail, and then I get back up again. And so that was kind of my first example in my life of doing that, where in 2004, you didn't get to go home. So nowadays you make the team, you get to go home, see your family, take a breather. No, like, I'm 15 years old, you make the team, my parents are having to ship me my clothes because then you immediately report to camp. And so I just like felt like I was flailing. Like, my parents couldn't be there, my home coach couldn't be there. And so it was just like one day after another of just feeling terrified, feeling like I had imposter syndrome, stressed out. Everyone else is in college. And so I feel like I was bullied on the team. It is not like that now, but this is 20 years ago. And so I went in and had a really rough first race, ended up being in such pain that I threw up all over the pool deck in front of millions of people. So it's like, I always tell people, like, think of like your nightmare of something, and you wake up and you're like, thank God that didn't happen. Like, no, that was my reality. And so I picked myself back up, swam my second event on day 3, and made the final at the Olympics. But still, like, for Team USA, you medal or it's a failure. A lot of the times that's how it's portrayed by the media, which it's not. I'm 7th in the world at 15 years old. That's a huge accomplishment. But I left those games of kind of like a do or die mentality. Like, am I done? Am I going to let this beat me? Or do I pick myself back up? And that's what I chose to do. And I always talk about 2004 and saying it was just like a crash course of showing myself like I can fail in a very large way, but I'd almost rather do it that way, because then at that point I was like, okay, if I can pick myself back up from this, I can pick myself back up from anything. And that really set the foundation of my next 4 years leading into 2008.
Yeah, I think there's so much there, but I think the idea is, I think there's a lot of people say, oh, people just are afraid to fail. I don't know. I don't actually believe that's true. I don't think anybody's afraid to fail. I think people are afraid to fail publicly. You know, if you do something, you make a mistake, like you're doing a crossword puzzle. I don't even know if people still do crossword puzzles, but like
I've never done a crossword puzzle.
You're doing a crossword puzzle, and like you get the answer wrong. Or like I'm sitting in my house watching Jeopardy, and I'm like saying the answer, and I'm wrong. Like, I don't feel bad because nobody's sitting there watching me. Yeah. But I feel bad when somebody, like, I'm like, God, should I have said it? And I hesitate to say the answer out loud. So it's like failing publicly. The idea that the top 1%, the tip of the spear, people like you, I think they're okay with knowing they may fail publicly and then using that as motivation to win publicly. Is that
Yes.
Is that how, like, here you are, what others might, what you consider a failure, 7th in the world at 15. 7th in the world at 15 is
like looking back, yes.
But in that moment, you're like, oh, it's a failure.
Yeah.
I throw up on the pool deck. 15, I miss my parents. I miss this whole thing. My world is collapsed around me. How do you find that strength, or where do you find that strength to enter the lion's den again?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing on the fail thing, someone always said, like, be the idiot in the room.
Yeah.
I think it's a good friend of mine. And I feel like that is the thing. It's like, at this point, like, we talked yesterday, I'll walk up to anyone on the street, ask them a question. Like, I don't really have that embarrassing fear of rejection. Like, it's just kind of gone. I don't know why, but it's an amazing thing to have.
Liberating.
You can do whatever you want. You don't and I think that was kind of the start of it. I'm not saying at that point I was fine with that, but it kind of kicked things off. And then I always think, like, how did I get back up? I think it was very process oriented. It was sitting down with my coach saying, what happened? Like, why were you so fearful? And for me, like, I've always been someone who's so driven by, like, I guess the process drives my confidence. And so we sat down and created a plan of, like, okay, here are the sets that you're going to do so that you stand behind the blocks and you aren't terrified of this event, and you can have, like, actual data to show you. I'm not someone who does very well when it's just like, no, just, like, look in the mirror and affirmationally say, like, you are the best. Like, that just doesn't work for me. It works for other people, but for me, it's like, no, I did these times, I hit these paces, I am ready to go. And that's what we figured out from that point on.
I often talk about confidence without data is delusion.
Yes,
1,000%. So for me, I need the data.
Yeah,
I need the data. Now I can kind of get my affirmations right, and I can kind of tell myself the right thing. But my confidence is higher when I have the data to say I put in the work. When I'm running a marathon, I ran London. I was like, all right, I know I have a shot at 3:20 because I have all this data to say this is what I've done. I've done the work, so I put myself in position. And so you dive back in. You're literally now, all right, next Olympics of going out again. Is that?
People always ask that question. They're like, how do you, every 4 years, like, how do you, yes, but it really was a year at a time, because you do have world championships the year after the Olympics and the year before the Olympics, so you're preparing for that. But my, like, kind of redemption comeback tour was 2005 World Championships, and at that point I won 3 gold medals at that meet. I broke my first American record, and then decided to turn professional. So that was kind of like my, like, at 16, I'm signing a 10-year Speedo contract. This is it. Like, I'm doing it. Yeah. And the 2005 leading into 2008, stars were aligned. Like, I was breaking world records, I was breaking American records, and everything was going really well. The problem with all of that is I kind of kept upping the ante, right? I went from, like, I just want to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal to, oh, now I'm swimming 5 events, I'm signing a 10-year contract, like, actually more than Michael Phelps. I'm 15 years old at my first Olympics, and so all these parallels started of suddenly female Phelps and all of these outside things that started to kind of, it felt like walls were starting to kind of close in leading to 2008.
What did you miss? And what I mean by that is you're now an adult. You have this whole life, but looking back, what do you think? I guess you don't know what you don't know, but you didn't have the normal teenage life. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like it doesn't sound like you had a ton of time to go out with friends, or maybe even a date, or go through the whole high school experience. You said you're homeschooled and you're always in the gym. Do you look back now and say, like, did I miss something? Is there something that that you're like, gosh, I missed this because I was so devoted to being the best at what I do?
No. I mean, I don't feel like for a second I ever viewed any of that as sacrifice. Like I still went to prom. I still went to homecoming. Yeah. I think I was so in love with the process. I was so in love with the goals. I was so in love with like what it felt like to break records that none of that really even entered my mind. People talk about that like, well, it's such a sacrifice to be an Olympian or be a professional athlete. I'm like, is it? Like I don't view that as sacrifice. And I truly believe if you're doing something, like even what you're doing, you're traveling all over the place, but like you named your schedule to me last night and I was like, oh dear God. Yeah. But like, I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, that's not sacrifice because what you're doing is so impactful and fills up your cup so much. And so I don't feel like it was that I missed. What I missed was, I think, being able to be more present in certain moments instead of just like, I was a big check the box person. Check the box, check the box, check the box, and not like, okay, let's take a second and enjoy breaking this record or enjoy hitting this milestone. It was always like pursuit of the next thing, and that's what ruined it for me.
So then you go back to the Olympics.
Yep.
And now you have.
Now I'm swimming 5 events.
Yeah. now again, you've upped the ante. Right?
Yes.
You've upped the ante. What was the big mindset difference between that first Olympics and the second Olympics?
I mean, so much more of a veteran. Like at that point, I had swum in 2 world championships. I had been around the national team for 5 years. So comfort-wise, I didn't have that feeling of like having imposter syndrome.
And you're 19 now, 20?
I just turned 19, yeah. So really young, even though I felt like I'm like,
I'm a veteran. I'm 19 years old.
Yeah. But I look back on it a lot on, I actually swam pretty well throughout the meet. It's an 8-day meet. There's just so much more that goes into an Olympic Games than an Olympic trials. So at the Olympic trials, I won all 5 of my individual events. And I guess I could say I swam 6 events because I swam in the relay. Right. But for people watching on TV when they watch the Olympics, I swam 4 400s, 6 200s, had press conferences, blood testing, urine testing, walking to all these things happened. And I just wasn't prepared for the schedule on that physical and emotional level.
Yeah, it just took a lot out of you.
Took a lot out of, I was still winning medals, but I think every time I got out of the water, for example, day 1, I went half a second off of my world record best time. It just happened to be that 2 other girls went faster that day. So I won a bronze medal, my first ever Olympic medal, and I came out and every single person was like, "Are you okay? Like, what's wrong?" So
you won a bronze. Hold on.
I mean, but that's.
Hold on. You won a bronze medal.
Yep.
And you got out of the pool, and somebody asked you if you were okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's. I get that sounds crazy. I think
it sounds bananas to me.
But
I'd be doing cartwheels across the pool deck. Like my heart breaks for you, and I know that seems like. I'm sure that's, you tell why.
Yeah, I think, and Missy and I have this conversation a lot on the podcast of, it's all based on expectations, right? So expectations for me were, which I didn't think was real. I was like, I just want 1 gold medal. That would be great. But the expectation was to go in and win 4 or 5 gold medals. And so if I'm coming in ranked 7th and I get a bronze medal, I'm doing cartwheels. Yeah. But when the expectation is gold, I want a bronze, then I want a silver, then I really want a bronze. So it's 3 medals, yes, is an incredible accomplishment, but when my expectations and the whole media and U.S. expectation is that's when it becomes an issue. And I mean, across the board, right? Like anyone at any point in business, if they're trying to sell their company for $1 billion and they only sell it for 10 million, you could be like, but 10 million?
Yeah, that's right.
But they didn't, that wasn't their expectation. And so it was a crash course in that of expectations drive everything.
William Shakespeare said, expectations are at the root of all heartache.
100%.
Every time you're upset, every time in your life you're upset, it's because an expectation wasn't met.
Yeah. But how do you avoid that?
How do you avoid it, right?
Yeah.
So there's only 2 ways to avoid it, and that is to either have no expectations, have 0 expectations, which is not possible.
Not realistic.
Not possible.
Good luck.
Want for nothing, need for nothing, have 0 expectations. or somehow become resigned to the fact that even in those Olympics, you can't control what other people do. You can only control what you do, which is which you've said twice on this interview already. Your love for the process, your love for the behaviors, and you got to divorce the outcome and fall in love with the behaviors. Can you look at, which is again a really hard thing to do.
Really hard thing to do. I mean, I think for the longest time, like I didn't want to look at my medals. I didn't want to talk. When people would be like, oh my gosh, can I see? I didn't want to share my medals. So like regardless, when your goal is to win Olympic gold, like I don't care who you are, like you're disappointed. Yeah. And I think I don't know if I say resolution, but I think the point that I've gotten to is more just acceptance. And it's kind of okay if it's like bad stuff will happen and it might always sting a little bit. And like, it's more now, I feel like what I've taken away is I now know how to speak to someone who got touched out for a gold medal. I know how to overcome failure and find the silver lining. There's a lot of really process-oriented things that came from that, but sometimes it's okay that it stings, it taught me, I think it gave me a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. It gave me this hunger, and that's now, I think, the fuel that I use going into life after swimming, of being able to accomplish something even greater. And like you said, so maybe if I'd won 5 gold medals, I'd be sitting there like, well, how in the world can I top that?
Yeah, well, that was my next question was twofold. What do you think? What do you think the difference in your life, sitting here today, right now, if those medals you had, 2 bronze and silver, were 3 gold medals?
Oh, that's like a question that I've asked myself in tears, with Todd, in therapy. Like, what would be different? I don't think I would have disappeared from the sport for 5 years. I don't think I would have done that. So I think there might be different opportunities, but at the same time, like there's been other opportunities that I've created for myself because I didn't have that. So it's like a game that you want to visit and try to answer, but you don't want to spend too much time in that space because what ifs are just not helpful.
So just because I know you, and we're going to talk now about the 5 years.
Yeah.
And knowing you, I didn't know you when you were in the Olympics. I know you post-Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't know you 3 gold medals. I know you 2 bronze medals and a silver medal, right? And the best part about you is what you've done in the 5 years. And that 5 years doesn't exist if you win 3 gold medals. And your place on this earth will be based on that 5-year gap, not the medals. So all the things you've done to yourself, all the I am enough, all the stuff that you've like championed, never happens. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like in it right now. So it's not, I think I would be lying if I said like, I'm in a perfect place and it doesn't bother me. Like I'm about to go to the Olympics and I'm about to watch people win gold medals. And like I'd be lying if I said I didn't still have like a twinge when I watched that. However, the fact that I want to go to the Olympics, not competing, the fact that I wanted to start like all of those things have come from the work that I've done in the last 5 years. But I don't really know what I've gone into sales and develop all these skill sets on that side if I'd won 3 gold medals. I don't know the answer to that, but I do have a lot of pride in the skill sets that I've developed because I had a little bit of an extra I want to prove things outside of the sport. And maybe I would have just stayed in the sport, which is totally fine. And there's a lot of greatness there, but I think I love having these like different buckets of myself where not everyone has that.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 5 years. Let's talk about that like rediscovery part, right?
Yeah.
So you get done the Olympics.
Yep.
You come home. Then what?
Well, there's another 4-year stint. So I didn't heal at all after those Olympics. I kind of you have sponsors and you have contracts. And so I think looking back, I wish I had someone be like, no, like you need like 6 to 8 months of just removal, grieving, process things. But I jump right back in. So the next 4 years were a very like roller coaster of kind of like start, stops, like finding my footing, having a curveball with certain different things happening. And so I ended up not making the team in 2012, which is now the silver lining of them all, because that's how I met my now husband, Todd. And then I actually, to speed things up, tried to make another comeback for 2016, got a blood clot in my lung, which was wild, and ended up retiring not on my own accord. That I was like, nope, I'm actually done. Like, I don't want to see a pool. I don't want to go to a swim meet. I don't want to coach. I just wanted to be done. And I was like, I'm just going to reinvent myself and just be this badass corporate woman. Like, that was like my like parting line. And I tried everything. I was like going to be a dietitian because I liked nutrition. Like, I thought I was going to be in fashion. I was going to go to the red carpet in LA and be in fashion because I liked clothes. All these things. Perfect. Perfect solution. But I think the thing through all of that was like, I just kind of I had no, I guess, apologies to anyone to stop something and start a new thing. Like, I didn't stay too long in anything, and I trusted my gut of like, nope, this isn't it. Mm-hmm. And if I had, been like, oh no, I'm going to finish up my degree and spend 3 years trying to be a dietitian, it would have been a disaster. But I'd be like, nope, I'm actually terrible at chemistry, and there's no way in the world I can do this. Bye. I'm out. And so I kind of kept doing that. And like, I was in operations for franchises. I was in dietetics. I had a internship at Bloomingdale's, all disasters. And then I was like, I'm going to go into sales in fitness. And that was a great foundation. But again, there was always like, I always kept being like, well, it's the job, and like, it's me. Sure. Like, I'm broken. And I kept kind of having little moments of victory. And I'm really good at sales. Like, I have no problem with overcoming objections. My follow-up is airtight. Like, yeah. I love that. But there's something about like hitting your quota that just doesn't quite measure up to breaking a world record.
Right. A medal breaking sales quota.
Yeah. So, but I think through all of that, I kind of finally got to the point where I was able to be like, okay, I think the reason, like, I had to hit myself over the head with it. I think the reason that I feel empty is not these jobs. Like, these jobs are great. I'm learning so much. I'm developing another side of myself that's not just Katie Hoff, the Olympian. It's Katie Hoff, like, top sales producer. Like, those things are good, but the reason it's not fulfilling is I've left this 20 years of my whole life that was so much of me. And that led to writing a book. That led to doing a very, very honest TEDx talk, which then led to finally going to a really long week intensive last year. This is all super fresh last year, and being able to be like, okay, like, I think I'm ready to kind of like be in it again.
What was there a shift moment? Was there a moment that you can recall that was the fulcrum moment where you're like, all right, something's got to change?
Yeah, I think so. I did the TEDx talk, or I accepted the TEDx talk. I was kind of in this mode of, okay, I'm miserable. I'm not just going to sit here. This can't be it. Like, this just, people kept being like, just be patient. Like, it'll come around. And I'm like, well, first of all, patience is not my virtue.
Right. I don't wait for things to happen.
No. Second of all, like, I don't believe that this cannot be it. There has to be something else out there. And someone DM'd me to do a TEDx talk. And I was like, I just need to start saying yes more. So I just was like, yeah. Which, like, not realizing it's kind of intense.
Yeah, TEDx. It's not a normal keynote.
No, my gosh. And it was the first time ever I had been honest in a speech. Yeah. Like, I had always felt like I needed to be like, the Olympics were amazing and I love my medals. And, like, I felt like I needed to do that because I was like, well, I don't want to be negative, Yeah. And that's not the case, right? People fail all the time. People have struggles and so many aspects of their life. And so I got up there on stage and I was like, I don't like my Olympic medals. And I got a standing ovation. And it was like, I just remember being like, oh my God, I'm so free now. Like, I can be honest, I can be authentic, and it can be inspiring at the same time. And so that was kind of my first real moment of okay, maybe, like I felt this pull, like maybe I'm ready to go back a little bit. Now, that was 2018, so I was still another 4 years away from truly finding my footing. Yeah, but it was like kind of like the first little like click of, okay, like you're not done here.
Yeah. And so now looking at that, looking at the TEDx talk, looking at the intensive work that you've done on yourself, what do you think is the number one thing you've learned about yourself? Take the whole highlight reel. 9 to your current, not from 9 to current age. What are the things you've learned about yourself?
I think the number one thing is I'm enough, for sure. And I think it will be okay. I think that's like always the thing is I always felt like I'm never going to be able to measure up to Olympic greatness, because how in the world how could I do that again? You know, my husband was always like, well, why can't you look at the odds of becoming Olympian? Why can't you do that again? I'm like, because look at the odds of becoming an Olympian. How am I supposed to do that? And I think what I've really realized is like I have a couple really, really distinct qualities, and I've learned to double down on those like 10x. Yeah. And I think you sparked a thought in me last night of what are all these qualities of, billionaire entrepreneurs or professional athletes, and what are the commonalities? I actually think if you look, so many of them, like Jeff Bezos gets up at 10:30 in the morning versus Elon Musk sleeps at the office. There's so many differences.
Different recipes.
And I think the people that are the best and are truly great just know how to double down on their few qualities of greatness. And I think I finally have owned those of like, no, these are the things that made me the best at swimming, and these are the things that are going to make me the best at whatever entrepreneurial venture I go to next, because I do have one, and like the podcast and all of these different things that I now have this confidence in myself again that was so lacking for that 5-year period.
So what do you think those qualities are?
So like teed you up for that one.
Yeah. You knew I was going to ask once you started talking.
The number one is I think I am like and like you give your dog like a bone or something, and then he latches onto it, and like you literally cannot take it away. Like when I find something that I'm truly lights me up, I am that way. Like I will do anything possible. I will work all hours of the night. I will run through a brick wall. Like I just have and nothing, right? It's not, the sacrifice doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter. How I feel doesn't matter. It's just that. And I think the hard part is finding the light up piece, right? And I think I have found multiple things in my life now where I've found the light up piece. So now it's like double down on your strength of being able to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's awesome. The idea that you now can see those qualities in you are pretty amazing.
The funny part is I was texting Todd about it of like, oh my gosh, like these people are saying these things to me about, this quality, and it's so nice that like it's happening now. And he's like, it's always been there. It's always been there. You just didn't. You saw it when you were competing at the Olympics, but then I lost it completely. And I thought, well, maybe that piece of me is just dead, and maybe that piece of me was just for swimming. Yeah. And that's not the case at all. It's always there. I just had to kind of like reignite it and dig it up a little bit.
So I'm gonna pose a hypothetical to you. So you're heading off to Paris, to the Olympics. There's a swimmer. There's a swimmer who is going in right now with expectations of winning the gold. She's young. She's 15 years old. It's her first Olympics. She's highly touted. She's the next Katie Hoff. She prepares. She's nervous. She's away from her family. She gets in the pool, and she swims. And she gets a bronze. What do you say to her? You're the first person she sees. You're the first person she sees when she comes out of the pool deck.
I think this is a tough one. Well, one, it's what's her reaction, right? It's let her react. It's a hug, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And there's no words coming from me until the words are coming from her. And I think that's right. Like no one really let me feel after my first medal. It was, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like, and I actually had my favorite picture of myself is from Beijing on the podium after the 400 IM. And it's a genuine smile. All the other ones are not genuine. It's a genuine smile. And so if she was happy, it's celebrating that and giving her love and support. If she's not, it's listening and, being an active ear to bounce things off of and be a mirror for that person. But that's the other piece I think people mess up too, is parents and coaches and friends want to help so bad in those situations when most of the time it's just be that trusted source for that person to bounce things off of. Yeah. And that's a lot of times I'm like, I don't need you to fix it. Just listen to me and let me get my thoughts out.
Yeah. I think, I'm a big universe guy, and I believe the universe always conspires to give you what you need, when you need it, exactly how you need it. And, looking at the book that is Katie Hoff, from a reader of your book, not the writer of your book, I can tell you that you don't get to rip out one chapter and have the same ending.
Yeah.
And the Katie Hoff that I'm sitting with today is pretty freaking amazing. And I don't know if I'm sitting here with Katie Hoff if you win 3 gold medals, and I don't know what happens next. But I have a feeling that the reason you're going to Paris has nothing to do with anything other than what's happened to you in your past. And I think the universe will conspire to make this Olympics pretty amazing. Couple more questions and I'll let you go. So you have this podcast.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Thank you.
It is ridiculously. If those who listen, if you listen to this podcast, if you have a podcast, you understand. I've had this podcast for 6 years, 6.5 years. We've been with amazing people, and it's that slow roller coaster up, right? Yours has come out of the gate. I mean, it is. We're going to call this from now on. It's Hoff style, right? I just coined that. It's Hoff style, right? 0 to 100 really fast, right? What do you love about it? What do you love about doing it? What do you love about it?
Yeah.
What makes it so good?
I think there's two pieces. One, it's so cathartic to be able to have conversations with other athletes who share so many similar feelings.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that was lacking, like Missy and I feel like that was lacking in our careers. So to have someone say like, wow, like thank you for giving me a space to just be real and be authentic, right? Like maybe I'd be on a podcast and could say, hey, here's how I feel about my medals and like maybe work through it sooner. I just feel so proud that we give off that genuine energy, that they feel comfortable in a space to just be themselves. And share whatever they want with the world. That feels really good, and that was part of why we started it. But you don't know until it happens if that's your vision is actually going to play out, and I feel like it has. And then I feel just so a part of what's currently happening. Like I felt like for so long I felt isolated to the Olympics and friends and up and coming athletes. And now it feels so cool to be watching the person on TV or watching them at the stadium and knowing their backstory. Like I cried 10x to what I ever do at Olympic trials because I actually knew the backstory to what these athletes had overcome and their goals and what it meant. And so that's just been so insanely special. And then I'll add a third is just the comments and the feedback. Like Missy and I were at Olympic trials and the people that stopped us, not because of they knew us because of our past as Olympians, but they stopped us to talk about the podcast. And I think that's such a mark of, right? Like my goal is like, great, that's in my past. I accomplished great things, but like you're complimenting me for my present. And that means more to me than anything.
Yeah. What my favorite, watching you at the trials and watching all the social media, my favorite part of it was you were putting a medal on a winner.
Yeah,
you were putting a medal on a winner. And for me, again, I know your backstory. I know you. I just thought it was like a perfect sign of you from that 9-year-old who worked her ass off, achieved Olympic just fame, went through the valley of despair, came out on the other side. You are now the statesman. Like, you're now the people that those swimmers want to be around and emulate. And to me, that's a pretty cool experience to just watch from the outside, to see you now as the person that everybody wants to be like.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's also like I had to have the confidence to feel that, like when the person that I actually put the medal around messaged me and was like, can we talk and can you give me some advice for the event in the Olympics? And I'm like, my first reaction was like, what advice can I give you? And then I'm like, wait, I actually can give you some advice here. So it's finding your own confidence to be like, oh, wait, no, I can be that person now.
I'm saying you got to download it because it's unbelievable, and we're gonna have Missy on at another point, and it's a must. It's a must listen to. It's
Thank you.
So good, and it's unscripted. It's just
unfiltered.
Yeah, it's unfiltered. Thank you. It's unfiltered. It's unscripted, unfiltered, and the conversations are they're just good, and they're funny too. They're like
yeah, I feel like it's really. I couldn't imagine doing this without a partner, like without Missy. Like I mean. You do it on your own and you do an incredible job, but like being able to, our personalities we're so different. We're so different. We laugh about it all the time. But I think that makes that dynamic is so helpful. And like we both have our strengths, we both have our personalities. So we're able to bring out the best in people. And so, like it is really fun. It's just I can't even view it. People are like, oh, is that a part of your job? I'm like, job? It's not a job. Like, what are you talking about?
I get to do this.
Yeah, I would do this for free. Let's be clear. Time. So, every conversation is so different. Every conversation is so fun, vulnerable. Like, anytime, it sounds bad, but anytime I get someone to cry, I'm pumped about it. Because
they cry, they buy. Exactly. They cry, they buy every time they buy into you.
So, it's just, I feel so just grateful for the way that things have unfolded and excited for the future. And people can see it anywhere. So YouTube, there's actual video, so Spotify and Apple, it's listening, but Unfiltered Waters.
One of the top podcasts in the country, Unfiltered Waters. It is unbelievable. All right, last question. You're young, so let's say in 70 years. When you
am I 105?
105.
Okay.
105, you're about ready to leave this earth. What do you want your contribution to have been?
I think I always think of the word just impact, impact on the next generation, impact on my loved ones, I think. And it's funny, those words coming out of my mouth, because it used to be like for people to view me as extraordinary. That was always my go-to. And this story, like I went into my intensive for a week, and the first question was like, what makes you happy, or what do you need to be happy? And I wrote down, I need to be extraordinary in everything that I do. And then the counselor was like, oh, honey, it's like, that's a rough way to live. Like, how you can't be extraordinary every day. That's not realistic. You're setting yourself up for failure. And so having this shift of what it has felt like to help the younger generation, and having messages that, hey, that helped me through a tough set, or that helped me through a tough month or a tough year, being able to do that, because I know how impactful that was for others. Like I have people that I model after that have changed the trajectory of my life. Being able to then do that for them, if people think of me in that way when they're at my tombstone, I will be successful.
One last question. If I were to pray for you, what should I pray for?
A baby.
A baby. I love that. A little baby running around. That'd be awesome. That's going to be awesome.
Yes.
I'm putting that out in the universe. Maybe triplets.
Maybe triplets? No. Twins would be great, though.
Oh, twins are the best.
I mean,
twins
but like, knock it out in one go.
No, it was so great. It's the easiest. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how they have two at different times. It's insane. Katie Hoff, Olympic, badass, entrepreneur, future mother, author, podcast host. The list goes on. We don't have enough time to list all of her accolades. Check her out. Unbelievable. Thanks for coming on, Katie.
Thank you so much.
It.